Hello everybody, this is Arash Salehi and welcome to the Anatomy Sculpting series. And today's lecture is about the sculpting a female head in ZBrush. Let's jump into that and start it. So I start with a sphere and I use a move brush with a big size to basically shape the silhouette and have the primary forms there. After that I use clip curve brush to make the plane changes that I need from the front side view. Clay build up to add the nose. And the next part for me after adding the nose and the eye sockets is the basically Zygomatic Arch, because it's one of the guidelines and landmarks that help me to put everything in place right. For the female, let me pause it here. For the female head, we need to make sure that we have a narrow jaw in comparison and chin in comparison to the male. For the male, it should be a little bit wider, maybe like this, it goes here. But for females, it should be narrower and more gentle. And basically, it's the other thing that I want to mention in this slide here is that we need to follow the rule, basically the three parts measurements from the top of the head, 1 unit, the second unit from the eyebrows to the bottom of the nose, and from bottom of the nose to the bottom of the chin it will be the third and last unit. And here the last unit will be divided to three itself, to 1, 2, 3. This part, it will be the, basically it's the mouth opening and the border between upper lip and lower lip, and that 2/3 from the top, it will be the place that the chin starts. So keep in mind these measurements. And let's start. It's important to look at your model from top view too, because some people just make it and it's basically a sphere and still a circle shape from the top, but it's an oval shape. And I'm adding the basically muzzle, not muzzle, the mouse, that's because it has a little bit bump in it and it's a round shape, it's not flat. Every time when you are sculpting a head, it's nice to add a little bit part of the chest area and the neck. Constantly looking from the side and front view, starting to add eyeballs and mirror it, use the subtool master option mirror. One thing that I want to talk about it here, let's pause it. Oops, it's gonna be a little bit tricky. Here, the eyeballs, remember the eyeballs, it's basically it's the size of the eyeballs should be it's as big as that you can fit 6 or 7 of them in the width of the head. Although we can fit 5 eyes in the width of the head, but the eyeballs are smaller than eye opening. They should you should fit basically 6 or 7 of them, usually 6 of them in the width of the head. And this part that you see that I am sculpting, these are the glabella, the definitions. This part is for the nose, the nasal bone. There is another definition here for males is more prominent, but for females are gentle. But even though it's gentle, I try to make it more defined, and after that go back and try to smooth it out. This is a fat pad in this area. They call it roof fat, and it covers that basically superior orbital margin on the top. And add more definition for the upper eyelid and lower eyelids, again looking from different angles, from top, bottom, to make sure everything is right. And we have two tendons here, that these two tendons, they call it epicandal tendons. I was emphasizing on one of them too right now. And this attached to the side of the to the medial part of the eye sockets, and they are visible on the surface. They make a surface form. And here in this area that I'm emphasizing on it is basically the parts that bumps, basically it's bony protrusion, and basically it pops up, but in male they're more prominent, and it's a plane changes happen here. Refining the fat pad in this area, roof fat, ROOF. And usually I try to keep everything consistent and take care of all the parts basically at the same time, and keep them at the same level, not go too detailed with one part and not take care of the other part. So right now I started just define the mouth, so I have a placeholder for that. But because eyes are a little bit trickier, I want to make sure that I'm in the right stage, and after that go back to the other part. And here you see it's a combination of two things. This basically this bulge and bump is the node of that on the corner of the mouth, which all of the muscles attached to here, and the jaw part, superior part of the jaw part. The lip, the lower lip, has two parts. It consists of two parts. One is a little lower, and the other one comes on top of that. Later I will define the border of them, and you will see that. I try to make sure that my measurements are right. That's the three divisions, 1, 2, 3. And from the side view for female head, the angle of the jaw is about 120 degrees. Make sure you have it right, and it's softer. The corners are softer in comparison to the male. For the male the corners are sharper, but for female it's softer, and the angle is around 120 degrees. I felt that the eye socket is basically too much back. I need to bring it forward and start to refine and make a smooth transition. In the female face you need to have a smooth transition between different features of the face. Usually it's in comparison to the male. So again, it's that bony part that pops up. I talked about it before. I'm trying to again re-emphasize it. And sculpting a head and the portrait is something that you need to reiterate and do it again and again, because when you are sculpting one part, maybe it looks good at the first time, but when you are sculpting the remaining parts, that part it doesn't look but in comparison to the other parts, and you need to fix that. So this here we have two fat pads. This nasolabial fold fat pad, and the other one is malar fat pad, is triangular and rectangular and triangular fat pads. I'm trying to add this fat pad specifically for female body and face. There are a lot of fat pads and they're more prominent in comparison to the male. We see this nasolabial fold that starts from the corner of the nose and comes to the corner of the mouth, is more visible on female. And after that I smooth it out. And one of the things that I want to tell you guys about using a smooth brush, when you're using that, try to decrease the intensity of that to have more control on basically your progress. If it is intensity of the smooth brush is too high, you will lose a lot of forms that you already made it. But the purpose of using a smooth brush is to making a smooth transition between the forms. Here I saw that the length of the zygomatic arch is too much, so I bring the ear forward, because the zygomatic arch ends immediately at the beginning of the eye, and it ends on top of the ear. Sorry, eye, not eye, ear. And it ends on top of the ear hole. Here, it's like this. And the ear has basically it's the main parts: helix, antihelix, and tragus and antitragus. I will start to sculpt antitragus a little bit more, and you will see that too. I use clay buildup, and mostly I use clay buildup. This is my favorite brush, but the other brushes that they use are move brush, standard, damage standard, and edge polish too. Yeah, this is tragus and this is antitragus here. We need to have a little bit volume here. I use a standard brush, but it didn't work properly. I use inflate brush. Inflate brush is the other brush that I use when I want to add more volume, round volume. So the shape of the ear is almost good in this stage, and I move to the other parts. The fat pads. Here, this angle that you saw from this basically globula, this wedge shape to that nose, in the females is another features of them that is softer in comparison to the male. For a male, this angle is very sharp, usually. Again, I'm defining that basically that nose borders, the bone of the nose border and the globula border, and after that starting to smooth it out, make it a smooth transition. But still I have some indication of that. The other thing that I want to talk is that the upper eyelids overlapping and is coming on top of the lower eyelid. The same thing happens with the mouth too, and lip. Upper lip is basically coming over the lower lip. When the bones ends, the cartilage starts for the nose, and the cartilage has the same features that we talked about the nose here. A little bit definition, it has a little bit definition, but usually it's thinner in comparison. It's to that bone, so we need to make it a little bit thinner. Again, the same thing that I told you, look at your model from different angles. Using damage standard to make a little bit more definition for the wing of the nose. And nasolabial fold, which is more prominent in the female. Make this part a little bit thinner in comparison to here. See, this part is thinner in comparison to here because of the cartilage. I felt that the nose is a little bit short. I make it longer. One of the important angles for the lips is looking them from the bottom to make sure that they have a nice curve. And here is flatten this area on the bottom of the cartilage. Make sure to make this part flatten. It's not round here, the cartilage, but this part is round because it's fat pad. And this fat pad, as I mentioned, is rectangular and triangular. they are both attached to each other on female, but in the males usually there is a definition between them, and they start from the root of the nose for both female and male. I'm looking to take care of a little bit Zygomatic Arch because it should be curved, not flat from top and bottom view. A little bit anti-tragus, emphasizing on that. And right now I'm adding that sternocleidomastoid muscle. When you're sculpting someone, make sure that it's completely straight and a nice line from the side view. It's not a curvy or bulge as on it. When I was working on this muscle, I saw that something was wrong with the nose and came back to fix that. And see, this part is nicer and smoother in comparison to males. Here again, it should be narrower in comparison to the top part. I'm changing the lighting to make sure that the forms are working in different lighting situations, because sometimes the forms works in one lighting situation and they don't work in the other lighting situation. And this muscle here, it has two basically ends. Once it goes here to 1/3 of the clavicle, the other one goes between to this clavicle and attaches to manubrium underneath of that. And right now I am sculpting the clavicle a little bit. Just a bit of the neck. I'm emphasizing on the other ends. This end should be, this is just tendon, it turns to tendon, but this part is muscle. And there is a triangular shape between them, indentation, a little bit gentle indentation between them. Again, look at it from the side view to make sure that it's a nice diagonal line. And Adam apple, I am sculpting that. It's a V shape from the front view, the Adam apple. Again, Zygomatic Arch, making sure that it's a nice curve shape, changing the lighting direction to make sure that everything is working fine. Looking from top view, bottom view, and edge polish to make this work flatten. A little bit more change on the chin, make it narrower. So right now I want to basically make a low topology mesh. When I hit the zero measure button, it didn't give me the result that I want looking for, so I use the guidelines in ZBrush that are for zero measure. I draw the basically patterns on the places that I want the edge loop to be. It gives me that edge loops, but the intensity wasn't enough. I use polypaint here with the intensity of 3 and a standard brush, and I started to paint over the places that I want more edge loops there. So it gives me the result, and I start to project the details from the mesh that it has Dynamesh on it to the mesh that it has subdivision level. And trying to fix that eye socket, make it a little bit deeper, and use demi standards and crash. I recovered from crash and try to define, although this fat pad covers that upper eyelid, but still we have the upper eyelid. You need to have the thickness for that. And my smooth brush intensity is very low, and I'm basically smoothing all of the artifacts that I have, and it happens because of I projected the model from the basically details from this model that it has dynamic on it. Again, these epicondyle tendons, these are very important and make surface form. This roof fat pads. For the male, this roof fat pads is not that much, and it's almost flat here. It's not bumpy the same as female, and we see a definition between the superior orbital margin and this fat pad. But for females, it covers that area and it makes a nice and a smooth transition. Again, emphasizing on this tendons here on the corner. Right now I want to basically define the eyelids a little bit more. Use the edge polish brush to make it flatten. Again, right now it's the advantage of having different subdivision level is that I can go through different subdivision levels, and when I basically go to the lower subdivision levels, I can make the big changes and big moves, and when I go to the higher subdivision levels, I can add more details, and that's the advantage of having subdivision levels. When I was looking at the side view, I saw that this basically plane changes for the eye is not right, because it should go down. Here should go down, yeah, this plane should be downwards, but it wasn't. So I am basically subtracting and removing a little bit of clay here in this area to make that plane changes from the side view. This is still some kind is okay, but I will take care of that, I think, a little bit more later. I look at from the 3/4 to make sure that I have a nice bump here from 3/4 and everything is working. I start to add the eyebrows, use the standard brush and create a new layer, because if it didn't work and the eyebrows that I'm making, simply I can delete that, or if it works I can bake it and add it basically as a part of my mesh. So the direction is important. The direction here is goes up, and here it goes toward each other from here and here. Remember, here it goes upwards, angular, and from here they go toward each other. I use mask circle to basically make the iris and the bump of the cornea, and use the 3D gizmo after it. Masking, make it smoother a little bit. Use move brush to pull it out. Trying to make the shape right with the move brush. Again, I add a little bit more indentation on the bottom of the eye to make that plane changes on the bottom of the eyelid. Right, so I use the standard brush and put it in RGB mode here in the corner, upper left corner. I change it from Z-add to RGB to start to paint on the basically this area to make the iris, and also I change the material of the eyeball to toy plastic. It's a shiny material and it's really good for eyeballs. Usually the size of the iris, if you want to imagine that the diameter of that is half of the diameter of the eyeball, and the diameter of the eyeball is about 1 inch or 2.5 centimeter. Right now I make it, but it's a little bit small. Later I will figure it out and make it bigger and wider. around the iris usually it's a little bit dark, not a little bit, it's dark actually, and I'm applying that. And for these lines inside of the iris, I use a little bit lighter and darker of that's basically local color to replicate the variation of the color and the basically form in the iris. And I use a smooth brush and put it in RGB mode to blend all of this stroke that I painted. Try to place that eyeball in the right position and right place. Here this part they call it philtrum, and it ends on the top of the upper lip. Okay, so right now I'm going to make that iris bigger because it was small. Yeah. Should be the diameter of that should be half of the diameter of the eyeball. Yeah, right now I make that eyeball smaller, and because I made these changes, I need to wrap the eyeball and wrap the eyelids around the eyeball and fix that part too. I need to look at it from the bottom view to make sure that everything, the eyelids are wrapping around the eyeball. Okay, time is standard to defining the basically the mouth opening. Usually if you put your characters in it's a little bit with a little bit of smile, the clients or maybe your art director likes it more. And the upper lip has three parts. One this part, and there are two other parts that goes this way. This part is a little bit bumpy, but these two parts are a little bit flatter, these areas. And the lower lid, as I mentioned, it has two parts, and I think in a second I will go through that and define that, and I will show you guys. Again, emphasizing on this node of the mouth and basically a little bit of the superior jowl fat, this area. Yeah, this is that part of the lower lip. This part is on top of the other parts, and the lower part of this basically it's lower lip. It has a very sharp. It's basically transition. We have another sharp transition here in the upper lip too. But for the lower lip, this part, the transition is not that sharp. Remember that. From bottom, it's very important to look at your model in different stages from the bottom view, because this is the either top view, because this is the view that most of people miss that, and just they look at their model from side or front view and they say okay, it's working. But when you look at it from top or bottom, there are a lot of things that are not working and you need to take care of them. Fixing that eyelids from the side view. It's a good idea to start to paint over the basically eyebrows, lips, and around the eyes when you don't want to basically texture paint your head, and for just sake of presentation, a quick presentation. It gives a nice definition, and this part will become the basically focal points, and your client or art director will look at them and say, oh, that's good, it works. So see, immediately after adding a little bit of paint in this area, that features are pops out, and you can see them better. Yeah, thank you for watching, and this is the final results. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will be with you guys with the next anatomy sculpting videos in the next weeks. Thank you so much, and have a good day.